Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address presented by pucksandpitchforks.com. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with the editor-in-chief, Nick Villano, streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, Twitch, and now on Instagram Live on the Let's Go Devils Network. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios inside the bunker. Undisclosed locations in both North and South Jersey. We got a great guest coming on, James Nichols of New Jersey Hockey Now. Part of, I don't even know what it's called, the Not Network.
Sports Not?
Yeah, Sports Not. I didn't know how to pronounce it, so I figured I'd ask you.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. Funny story. I don't know if I was there when James found out that Hockey Now is now under the Sportsnet umbrella. So that's I was sitting there with him and Ryan Novozinski. It was I think that was I'm trying to remember which game it was. It was like
earlier in the season. Yeah. Against San Jose?
Yeah. I think it was San Jose.
Wow, I got a great memory.
Seattle was so entrenched in my mind. I was like, it wasn't Seattle, but I can't think of another team. But it was another light, a tealish team from the Pacific.
Yeah. By the way,
listen,
Nick, before we begin, I don't know if you know this, but Danielle and I are planning that bus trip to Long Island, January 6th.
Oh?
Yeah.
Okay.
She started that new business, sports travel business, and this was the first on the docket. I was like, I want to try it out. So we had a few signups so far. Yeah. So anybody who wants to, has any questions, want to join us January 6th, take the bus, the Woo Bus 1 instead of Air Force 1, Woo Bus 1, because the mobile command center will be actually transplanted into that bus. So now it's suddenly part of our Primetime Radio Studios network, So.
Listen, I think the one way, that's one way to make Long Island better is just put a bunch of people from New Jersey there, right? That's we're trying to fix Long Island people, and I think New Jersey is the way to do it.
You know what's going to be cool is doing a moving podcast on a bus.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever done that before.
A moving podcast? I feel like we've had to have done it. We've done so many podcasts in cars. I'll never forget the time where
that's right. Vinny Parisi has.
Both of us were in cars and in suits. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And Bryce, I think Bryce is our guest. We had Bryce Salvador.
Oh, wow. I have to get back to that episode. I mean, but a moving bus, that's going to be a different one.
That's you definitely haven't done one on a bus. I feel like you'd get kicked off the bus if you did.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. January 6th. Email me at sam@letsgodevils.com for more information.
Sam@letsgodevils.com.
Yeah. Sorry. Don't let me interrupt you. Go ahead.
Listen, you never know. You might be transporting Dougie Hamilton or Andre Palat to their new teams to get traded to the Islanders. Maybe they'll take the what is it, Woo Bus One?
Yeah, Woo Bus One.
Maybe they'll take Woo Bus One on their way to the Islanders. I don't know. Listen, Sam, that's the big story right now. Is obviously this is the first time we're doing. You've done what, 10 podcasts since the Quinn Hughes trade?
Probably more than that. Also, an update if you want to go along with this Andre Palat. I got email confirmation it's going to be mailed back to me, the jersey, in 3 days.
Oh, okay. Sure. Whatever they say, Sam.
Hey, I got that. I got that Young Hao Koo jersey. I didn't even have it for a week, Nick, and the guy gets waived.
He was bad. He was bad
He was bad once I bought the jersey. That's what happened. But anyway.
But yeah, so that's, this is the first time we were doing the State of the Fan address since the Quinn Hughes trade. A lot has happened. We've talked a lot, right? Quinn Hughes has played, 2 games with the Wild? I think they won both of them.
Okay.
I know they won big against, I don't even remember who the first opponent was. I'm actually more like the thought in my head is that Vancouver's won both of its games since the Quinn Hughes trade. They beat us on Sunday, and then they beat the Rangers yesterday, right?
Yep.
4-1. So they're rolling. They're playing a different style of hockey. But we're here to talk about the Devils. A lot has come out since that Quinn Hughes trade. A lot of Devil stuff. There's one particular report that's especially frustrating. And I've talked to a lot of friends of the podcast just off the record, just kind of saying this is that, talking about that Greg Wyshynski and Rachel. I know her as Rachel Dory. I don't know what her new last name is. Crickshank?
Something like that.
Me and her, we talked a lot more before she was at ESPN, but I'm gonna have to ask her. I'll be like, listen, I'm saying your name on the podcast, and I'm saying it wrong. Now I need to pronounce her. Actually, I'm gonna message her right now to see if she can give me a quick pronouncer. But they had that report. Her and Greg Wyshynski, both friends of the podcast, by the way. We got to get them both back on because it's been so long since we've had both of them on.
Yeah,
we get other people from ESPN to get new voices on here, but we got to get Greg isn't over-reliable. Rachel's great. She was fantastic when she was on. So anyway, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. Point being, they had the report out this week that basically said the deal was done. And the deal was Simone Nemeth, Anton Silyev, Dawson Mercer, and a first-round pick. Here's why I think there's logic to that report. Because I think what happened is the Vancouver Canucks looked at the Minnesota Wild's deal and said, Quinn wants to go to New Jersey, but someone has offered us 4 first-round pick equivalents. Now, the Minnesota Wild deal is better than that Devils deal, but let's just say they're trying to save face. They don't even want the Wild deal to get out. It probably would never get out because I think if this deal didn't happen, the Wild would build around Z Boyum. But I look at that, and listen, here's the thing. If people didn't know about this Wild deal, I think people would rake Tom Fitzgerald over the coals if he did this deal, saying, you gave up everything. How are you going to upgrade the offense? There's nothing left in the coffers to upgrade the offense. All you do is get Quinn Hughes. But now that we know that the Canucks actually got a better deal, but they were willing to take this worse deal to get him to New Jersey where he wanted to go, according to these reports, maybe I'm filling in some blanks a little bit, but that's what it sounded like. I think. So the headline is that the reason that the Devils didn't pull the trigger is because they couldn't move money.
Nick,
so here's the thing.
Nick, I can confirm that is all true on the Devil's side. It was really moving the money. I can confirm that.
I understand that's the excuse. What if I told you they didn't have to move money to get Quinn Hughes? Right now. They have to move money eventually. But to fit him on the roster today, Sam, if you moved Simone Nemeth and Dawson Mercer, Quinn Hughes makes $2 million more than that.
How much is Nemeth making? He's making the rookie, which is about $1 million.
Yeah, about $1 million, like maybe $950. So it's about $1 million. Mercer makes what, 4 flat?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to get like.
No, I thought he was 4.3.
Is it 4.3? So there you go. It's. I think Quinn makes like 7.125 or something like that. So you literally need to make. You need to come up with $2 million. Guess what, Sam? They already have $2 million in LTIR space, and currently Jack Hughes is not. I don't think he's on LTIR. So you could have made even more space and fit him quite comfortably. But even if Jack Hughes isn't an LTIR, you have other guys you could put on LTIR to fit. I know that Kovacevic is on LTIR. And listen, then you're in real trouble, and teams are going to rake you over the coals to move money. But I've been told that teams want Dougie. Like, Dougie is not a distressed asset. I think people would pay something for him. And maybe, like, you have to figure, like, maybe the Devils have to take $1 million and make him an $8 million defenseman or even a $7 million defenseman, which, again, not ideal, but if you're getting something in return, then I think that's the price you have to pay. But getting $7 million off the book is huge. And listen, we're going to talk to James Nichols today because he had a really good report today. He talked to Palat and Hamilton today. And if you haven't read the report, go read it on New Jersey Hockey Now. Both, the way he framed it was he did a really good job. Got to hand it to the competition, Sam. But he showcased it like Palat was very matter of fact in how he said it. Hamilton kind of didn't answer the question. And I'll let you kind of read that at New Jersey Hockey Now. But we're going to have James, so we're going to talk to him directly about this, about the conversations he had. I'm curious about the tone and kind of the body language. You can kind of tell a little bit when you see it. But that's interesting, right? I think Hamilton's the guy they're trying to move because Hamilton has value. And also Hamilton's a tough pill to swallow in a buyout when Palat's buyout is kind of a nothing burger this offseason. His buyout has been terrible until now. But after this offseason, it's not bad at all. So if you have to buy it out, it's not the end of the world. I think with moving Mercer and Nemeth, if you move Dougie even at $7 million, like retaining $2 million, you could fit Quinn Hughes and bring back Kovacevic, and everything is honky-dory. I had to double check the numbers. We might be off by a couple 100,000, which you can make work with call-ups and send-downs and things like that. But I'll tell you what, Sam. I also my biggest gripe with Fitz lately. Here's the thing. Would you consider Timo Meier his biggest move? His biggest, how do I put this? Showed some guts move? Put his chips on the table move? It's Simon W. I think it's Timo.
Well, you got to put it in context. Nobody was going to New Jersey till Dougie signed.
I understand that, but I think that's beyond. Here's the point I'm trying to make. Timo being his most gutsy move. Gutsy for Fitzy. How many people thought the Devils lost that trade at the time? They didn't trade Holtz. They didn't trade Mercer. They didn't, they traded Mukul Madul, and it was the biggest prospect in there. And
he was just he was a mystery guy. So
right.
Really nobody knew.
He traded Zetterlund, who was a fourth liner, who turned out to be something a little bit better, but now he's kind of back to a fourth liner. You traded a Hoitok. I'm probably saying his name wrong. But he's in the
Yep.
And then the big deal was that you had two picks that could have turned into 2 first-round picks. That was probably why San Jose pulled the trigger. But again, that's not in the grand scheme of things. And also getting Santera Hataka back, who I was really high on. That's not that much. It's not that much at all. This would have been a much harder trade to make. You are giving up 3 players you took with first-round picks and another first-round pick. I don't think he cares so much about the 2026 first-round pick, but I think he cares about, you remember, I don't know if people remember this, but when the Devils had that second overall pick, when they won that lottery, they were trying to trade it. And I just think he didn't, people weren't valuing it the way Fitzgerald felt a second overall pick should be valued, and he didn't make the trade. I think, it's almost like he makes the big move either when he's going to win the trade, like say with Meyer, or when he's just been going at it for so long, which is how I feel the Markstrom thing happened. He paid a big price for Markstrom, which, we can play revisionist history. I think Markstrom was really good last year, has been terrible this year. But he paid the price to get it. I'll say this. Here's the issue, is I think Fitzgerald, during his time as general manager, has kind of had everybody waiting because he's going to set the market, and he just keeps waiting for somebody else to do it, so nothing gets done. Right? They waited for him to get a goalie 2 years ago, and a couple deals got vetoed, just like that happened to the Devils here. But nobody made a trade for a goalie until the Devils made the trade. And that's why you didn't really see any goalies move during the season. You didn't see Saros move. You didn't see a lot of these big names. Remember Hellebuck was in trade rumors? Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
You didn't see anybody move because Fitzgerald was still waiting. And then you saw when he made the Markstrom move, the Ullmark move was terrible. What the Bruins got in return for Ullmark was awful. Especially not even compared to what they gave up for Markstrom, but it was less than half in perceived value, in my opinion, than what the Flames got for Markstrom. And it's just because once Fitzy was off the table, that negotiating power is gone. And I feel like that happened here. Everyone knew, and Quinn Hughes is a little different because of the 26-year-old superstar top 2 defenseman, but everyone knew the Devils were going to pony up. So everyone knew that they had to beat the Devils' offer. And I think that's why you hear, everybody's like, oh, this was the Wild's first offer. Did they overspend? Because no, the Wild knew that the Devils were in this and were going to do anything. I do think that, I know you're hearing that it was just moving the money. I think the Devils would have done it, but I think that they hesitated because of the price. And, maybe they just didn't move fast enough.
No. They hesitated. They hesitated, and there was a lot of back and forth going on, and Rutherford was just simply getting impatient, especially when you had Bill Guerin. He had both Fitzy and Guerin in Pittsburgh. He knows them both very well. He had Guerin. He had that in his back pocket, waiting on Fitzy. I think that's where it can't. It was about money, but at the same time, I think Fitzy was just taking way too long in the end. I don't know. I think I don't know. Only he could probably say for sure. Was he just not? Was he not comfortable with it? And that's why I kind of stalled and kind of, petered out a little bit.
I think he blinked.
Yeah.
And I think, and here's the thing. You heard Quinn Hughes on, was it Saturday or Sunday? Whatever day it was.
Well, that was certainly interesting as well, because from what I understand through this negotiation, it had to be done that week. Yeah, I don't think they wanted it. There's a couple reasons, but I think they didn't want Quinn on the Canucks going to New Jersey. Well, exactly. Yeah. So time was running out. I remember setting up for this podcast. The equipment was ready. We were ready to go when that was breaking news, whatever. And I'm thinking, okay, normally this happens on a Friday afternoon, 5 p.m. and all that. And then finally it came out. And, it came
out at like 5 Vancouver time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It
was 8 p.m. Eastern, but, again, it's like I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised at all. But again, I'm not going to throw Fitzy under the bus, because look, if he wasn't comfortable with it, he wasn't comfortable with it. If you can make the money, I mean, basically what you're telling me is he could have made that money work.
But he has to know that. I mean, his job is on the line. Does he not know that? I know all the reports say he's on the hot seat. His job's on the line. If they don't make the playoffs this year, he's not coming. He's not getting control of the offseason. And I don't think anybody in his team will either.
Yeah. I just think that I just don't think I just didn't think he had what it took to get this deal over the hump. That's
Bill
what
Guerin is a different cat. You got to remember, he bought out. He's the guy who bought out Parisi and Suter, and just took that. I think it was like a 10 to 12, between 10 and $12 million for 3 or 4 years, just on the chin. Hurt his team, but he knew it. It would help in the long run. Since
day one, when Bill Guerin was a player on the Devils, he was a pain in the ass with Lou Lamoriello and got himself traded. Got himself traded for Jason Arnott in that deal in the late 90s. And I remember that. Like, it was just like, but here we go again. Him and Niedermeyer were pretty tough.
Andrew Chuck was like that when Andrew Chuck was here. Claude Lemieux got himself traded twice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think there's certain guys, like there's certain hockey personalities that, when you think of like the guys who came through the Devils, like there's so much talent that went through the Devils and those minorities teams that we just kind of don't think about as much.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them got.
We got James in the Andy Green room right now. James Nichols.
Let's bring James on.
Yeah, let's bring James on. James, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
It's cooking, boys. How we doing?
Listen, I think I'm doing better than Tommy or Fitzy. I don't know. I feel like my guy's sweating with the. And Sam, we didn't even talk about the roster freeze. Starts on what, Friday, James? Right?
Next Friday, right?
Is it next Friday or is it this Friday?
What day is
Friday?
it?
When is Christmas?
Christmas is no. So I think we were looking at. I think it's Monday. I think it's the 22nd.
Okay, so he's got 5 days until the roster freeze. I think if the Devils go into the roster freeze with no moves, I don't think a move is going to be made from the ownership, but I do think that there's going to be vitriol. What do you think? This is a strange place to start. This isn't where I expected to start, but do you think it could get worse than it is with the fan base?
Yeah, I do. I think
Fair.
that listen, I think they're loud online. I don't know though if you've been to the Rock in the last few games, it's been quiet. I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that's, just because of how maybe they felt, or meaning the fans, they've felt let down at the product on the ice, a lot of 1-0 thems, as you know, and that maybe that sucks all the energy out of the building. But I'll be honest, there's been a few instances where I'm sitting there and I'm, grabbing my phone and kind of getting ready for that, fire Fitzy chant to start, and it never does. Um, so yeah, I think it definitely could get worse just because, like I said, I know they're allowed online. Um, but I mean, we've been there for chicken tenders, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the kind of thing that, not that I'm advocating for anybody to throw anything on the ice, but we've seen how bad it could get. And listen, like as far as his job security, I mean, I know, and Ryan published the other day, like right now he's safe. Does
Yeah.
that mean that he's not, working to prove something? Like, you guys were talking a little bit earlier about, to get to the summer and keep his job through the summer. I think he's certainly at that point, right? Working right now to prove himself to last longer than the rest of this season. But certainly I think it could get worse. So, I mean, if you're asking me if something's going to happen before Christmas, I mean, I've been told through multiple different sources that, yeah, something's coming, but I mean, like you said, we're getting close. It's only 5 days, right? Like, I guess we'll see. They have 4 games until we get there. So until we get to the break, right? So it's 3 games until the freeze, 4 games until we're at the break.
So the main topic of what we were talking about is I kind of like just analyzing it. Like when I look at it on paper, I was like, well, he traded for Timo Meyer and he traded for Tyler Toffoli and he traded for Markstrom. Like he makes big money moves, but when I see the returns
Hmm.
for those outside of Markstrom, he didn't really overpay or pay like a bounty for, compared to the value. He usually tries to win these trades, which all GMs do, but it almost makes me feel like, well, eventually you just got to get the player. And is he the is are you? I'm trying to say this to where you can go in the room and not get yourself in trouble. But do you feel like he can? What was the? Am I allowed to say this? I'm going to say it anyway. Do you think, as Quinn said, can he sack up? Like, does he have that capability?
Gotcha. I know what you're saying, and I hear where you're going with this. Here's what I think. I think you're right in the sense that he does have the history of being able to make the kind of move that he says he's going to make, right? Like it's not like he's ever, said anything that he didn't make good on.
Mhm.
However, I do think that there is perhaps too much patience in his corner. I think maybe sometimes he, tries to hold on as long as he can for the best deal in order to, not fork over as much as perhaps the ask is. Now, if you look at the Timo deal, that was before the deadline. He still, at the time, it looked like he gave up a decent amount. In hindsight, it's perhaps not as much as you thought, right? Like Zetterlund's not even there anymore. Mukamadulin is still, he's still developing,
It's
and
like
those picks, we'll see what they turn into. I don't know off the top of my head what they even were. By the way, you were right. Hataka, he was the goat. I don't know what happened to him. I missed that guy, but and
he
then
had a
just a
really
number
bad
of.
he had a really bad injury last year that just
Oh yeah.
I can't remember if it was a shoulder or a hip or something, but he just never he tried to come back too quickly because I think they were dealing
Yeah.
with injuries. He thought he saw an opportunity to make the initial roster, and then yeah, I think
Yeah,
I'd
no,
have to look at what he's doing, but I think
you're
he's
right. No, he's
probably going to
over
play
in
well.
I think he's over in Sweden or Finland. I forget
One
which
of those.
league, but I
He
spoke to
didn't go to the
him. I
cage
spoke to him
though. He
that
went to
summer.
the
No, no, and I spoke to him that summer, and he was like, "I think I'm fully ready to make this team." And before he got injured, he was looking like he had a real chance. And then he got injured, and he just, he got forced out of the lineup and opted to go elsewhere. But regardless, I mean, listen, the Timo trade again, he paid a decent amount at the time for
Yep.
Timo, and that was like a week before the trade deadline. So to say he's like ready to go out early and do things, I mean, we haven't seen that, right? We saw 2 years ago the deadline where There's an argument to be made that yes, he waited too long to salvage that season, but then he kind of went ahead at that deadline and restructured the Devils for the following season, starting with Jake Allen and restructuring what that goaltending tandem looked like. And then we saw what happened in the summer when he got Markstrom. So he does have the vision to make these swings. He does have the ability to pull off these deals. But I think it's, again, like I said, just a patience thing that he thinks he has perhaps more time than he does. And I think right now you are seeing that because the Devils losing, I think it's, what is it, 7 of their last 8, and 6 of them at home. It's not looking good. And obviously, of course, injuries play a factor into this, but they play a factor into this every season for the last 3 seasons. You have to have some sort of contingency plan to be able to sustain a Jack Hughes team that's only going to see 60 games of their franchise star, because that's what it's been. Sometimes it's been even less. So, the Devils have a lot of assets, and I think they were hoarding a lot of these assets in the anticipation that they were going to be in the mix for a Quinn Hughes. Now you see that they're not in the mix for a Quinn Hughes. And to be honest, like, of course, look, if a Quinn Hughes is out there, you're going to go get him if he's available, or you're going to try to go get him if he's available, right? But coming into the season, the Devils had needs in the top 6 for a forward and at third line center. And now that there's clarity, that's what needs to be addressed, because the defense will be fine as structured with, Nemitz and Luke Hughes will be fine. That I think now that he's going to be back next to Brett Pesce and Siegenthaler, and eventually Kovacevic is going to come back, and I think they're going to be fine there. It's down the middle. Everyone talks about how teams are built from the net out, then the blue line, and then up the middle. Up the middle is by far their weakest area right now, if it's not the goaltending, which I don't know if anybody expected. But and then
I think that'll be fine.
You can go ahead.
I will go on record. I think one of them will figure
ultimately,
it out.
Yeah, ultimately, and I'm kind of leaning Jake Allen, but ultimately I think they'll figure it out. But they need a center, and I think that you're hearing a lot of noise about Ryan O'Reilly, and I think that's for a reason. But certainly he can do it. It's just a patience thing for me that I think he's a little too patient.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it from 2 ways. I thought Ryan O'Reilly was the guy to get last year. I think you could have been competitive in Carolina with Ryan O'Reilly on the roster, even with all the injuries. Like, they were fighting in some of those games. They had, a 3-0 lead in Game 5 before they blew it. I don't think you blow it with a guy like Ryan O'Reilly on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just kind of a certain thing. But then I look at it. My issue with this roster, James, and you're there more often than I am, obviously, but and you see the practices. My problem is I look at this roster, and there's a few square pegs and round holes, and I think Nason was a really good fit last year, but like post groin injury stuff in Nason, I still think he can contribute something, but it just doesn't fit. I really wish he could just take faceoffs on the 4th line, and then you just play him with Crookshank and Perrant, because I really like what those two are doing, and just have a complete energy line. But Sheldon Keefe doesn't seem to want to put a non-natural center there, which is fine. And then I look at like Dougie Hamilton, and I was talking to a couple insiders about this, and just the big problem with Hamilton's not having a bad season when you look at kind of everything, like the whole picture, but he just doesn't fit with anybody. Like, he doesn't fit with any left hand. He doesn't fit with Luke. He doesn't fit with him. And Siegenthaler have been like oil and water for some reason, and they just haven't had that chemistry. Him and Dylan, like, they were good last year, but this year just, and this is a better version of Dylan. Something's just not working there. It's again, there's just a lack of chemistry. Honestly,
what's the common denominator? What's the common denominator?
What's Hamilton?
It's Hamilton. Listen, I'm a big Dougie fan, the person, but the player, I have a problem with the way he's playing this year. I mean, some people had messaged me like, "Oh, look at the statistics. Like, his Corsi 4 looks great. The expected goals, yada yada." What I'm seeing on the eye test, like, yes, I get it. He could pad stats, but I mean, he's not getting it done on the score sheet. And what I think is happening is that he's doing it in these moments that really don't matter. They could be down, 4-0, and then he'll score a goal, late in the 3rd period when they're clearly going to lose the game. But even worse for me is that He plays, and I don't want to be insulting, but I compare him to a paper bag. I don't
Yeah.
see enough snarl in his game. I mean, he's very passive. He doesn't really, um, dig into the dirty corners. He doesn't, play hard on the walls. He doesn't defend hard in front of the net. I mean, he's the kind of guy who I think, puck carriers and players on the rush know that they can kind of barrel over or blow by, and he's just going to be okay with it. And the thing for me is, when you're looking at a guy who makes $9 million, he's supposed to be a leader on your team and help, buoy them and boost them when they need it. He's just not providing any of that. There's no fire in his game. And I know that there's this narrative amongst fans that, oh, they need some elbow grease, they need toughness, yada yada. It's not even that. There's just no fire, no passion in his game. It's almost like he's just happy to be there and he's just going through the motions. And if he scores, great. If he doesn't, all right, whatever. Maybe I'll score next game. And that's just what I'm seeing from him. Is just I don't see a fire or a passion in him right now. Whereas you look at a guy like a Brendan Dillon who brings that every night.
Yeah.
Imagine putting Brendan Dillon's effort and fire into a Dougie Hamilton. You'll have a superstar. You'll have a superstar defenseman. But I'm just not seeing that from Dougie.
I'm going to share a crazy stat with you because I was curious. You mentioned kind of a lot of his stats are coming, kind of in these weird margins where the score is kind of out there. I'm on
Hmm.
natural stat trick at even strength when the Devils are within one. Dougie Hamilton has been on the ice for 6 goals and has been on the ice for 13 goals against. When you compare that
Right.
to Luke Hughes, everybody thinks he's having this terrible season. In those same situations, Luke Hughes has been on the ice for 15 goals and 18 against. Nemeth has been on the ice for 25 goals and 16 against. So you
Right.
compare him to, and Dylan has been on for 14 and 14. So his numbers are an outlier. When you compare him to all the other defensemen on this team, even looking at a Colton White. Colton White has been on in those situations 3 goals for, 3 goals against. Obviously, he has a lot fewer minutes. Pesci
Yeah.
is 3 goals for, 1 goal against. You're looking at him compared to other defensemen. His numbers might be great, his underlyings might be great, but underlyings are such a flawed way to look at
Yeah.
hockey, in my opinion, because it doesn't care if you're in the right position. Your XG doesn't care if you're in the right position. Your XG doesn't care if
Absolutely.
you leave your partner out to dry. It doesn't care about these things that actually cause goals against.
Right. Right. No, I think that's well said, and that's exactly what I'm seeing. And again, it's the number of times. I mean, I can't even count on one hand, two hands anymore. I need more hands to be able to count the amount of times that myself or someone else in the box have scoffed at a play like, oh my God, like this he's got to do something to keep the play in front of him, or get the body out of the front of the net, or
Stop taking
make
penalties.
stop taking penalties, make a clean pass. I mean, all these things that he was signed to be and do. Like, I get it. Players sign these deals that are mega deals in the beginning, and they're not going to age well. But I mean, this guy's got a handful more. Was it 3 more years after this? 3 more years
I think it's
after this
2
season? I
after
mean,
this.
two.
Because
That
I
sounds
think
right.
he was
Two.
yeah.
Yeah,
He had
two
one
after
more
this,
year
and
when we were calculating the Quinn Hughes deal. He was going to have 1 year left if Quinn Hughes quote unquote signs here.
right.
Um,
Right. So I mean, you're starting to see that decline, and it's kind of getting really ugly. And I think he was able to get by on just his pure skill before, but now, I mean, I don't know. He's got to add another element to his game, because he's just getting skate. They're skating circles around him out there, and he just kind of seems like he's okay with it.
Do you think he's capable of making what I call the Scott Stevens transition? Because I wrote about this earlier in the season. He was making big hits early in the season. He really looked like he was using his size to his advantage in October. I don't know where that
Hmm.
element went. Do you think he's capable of, for those who don't know, Scott Stevens was Dougie Hamilton. He was an offensive defenseman. He was better, but he was an offensive defenseman, a 60, 70 point guy. And then he was like, oh, Scott Niedermayer's here, and he's better than me at this, even though I'm elite. So I'm going to turn into the best defensive defenseman in the league. Again, I'm talking about a poor man's version, but do you think he can make a transition to his game where he's like, I don't have that anymore. Can I take my skills, especially after that? I talked a lot about the pec injury. That's really bad for defensemen. Matt Dumba forgot how to play hockey after it. So, like,
Right.
I knew there was going to be some drop off there. Is there a transition do you think he can make?
It's a good question. I would say he has the physical tools to do it. Does he have the mental tools to do it? I'm not sure. The other thing I think of too is like, look, he's got the size, right? Obviously, he could throw a hit. He can use his 6'4". He could use his 6'4" stature to be able to do so. And he's not, he's not small by any means. I mean, he's a skinnier guy, but he's not small. Is he the fastest skater? I think that's an element here that maybe is a bit different than what Scott Stevens had to do in his transition from, an offensive defenseman to a defensive defenseman. The game was not as fast in his day as it is now. So he'd have to be able to keep the game in front of him a bit, and that might be a factor. But again, there's no reason why he couldn't do it with his size. Now, it's again kind of like what I was alluding to earlier. It's his mentality. Does he have the ability to be that dog that drags them into a fight? Does he have the ability to, get into a scrum between whistles? I mean, do you see him dropping the gloves with anybody? Do you see him even pushing and shoving with anybody? I don't see that. He's like the biggest defenseman on the ice for the Devils, so it's a bit concerning that, like, when those guys are getting feisty, he's kind of just in the corner hugging somebody and saying, hey, let's go over here and just wait for this to end. So he has the physical tools, but the mental tools, I'm not so sure. And, I don't know if somebody has to, tell him like to his face, like, hey, you got to kind of make this transition. Otherwise it might be over for you. Not that I think that it is over for him. I think I need a bigger sample size out of him to see if this is who he is now. But, it certainly is something that,
But this is not a
might
$9
be a
million
factor.
defenseman.
No, certainly not. And that's why, again, look, all these moves that have been made leading up to this point happened for a reason, right? Obviously, Luke Hughes makes $9 million. They did that with the intention that maybe Dougie's not going to be here much longer. I don't think they anticipated him playing the way he is, that now he's a bit more difficult to move than he might have
Yeah.
been previously.
So I brought you on here to talk about the report you had today. So let's get to that right now because I don't want to run out of time here.
Yeah.
You had this great report. I've been talking up this whole podcast, but you spoke with Dougie Hamilton and Andre Palat, and you got their thoughts on the rumors. Obviously, there's the rumor from Elliot Friedman that somebody wouldn't waive their no trade clause, and then there's the rumor from Kevin Weeks that Palat and Hamilton are available for trade. Chris Johnston put Palat and Hamilton on his trade board. So there's a lot of talk around them both. They had very different answers. Now, I want to ask first, did you notice anything in their body language? Because, I read your report. I can take one thing from the words. Did you notice anything about their composure?
Certainly. I mean, it's pretty much their composures overall. This is how they are. Palat's very straightforward. He'll tell you, like, no, like nothing. And he's always been that way, but he's honest. Like, he'll tell you, we've had instances where we've walked straight up to him and been like, hey, dude, you haven't scored in like 20 something games. He's like, yeah, I got to be better. It's not good. But he's always been straight up and honest. And, he's not afraid to be. Whereas with Dougie Hamilton, he's a bit more timid in front of the camera or timid behind the mic. I know we all see Admin Dougie and he plays these jokes on social media when the pressure's off, but when the pressure is on and you're asking him about his game or about a losing streak, and I mean, I've straight up gotten answers from him before where I'm like, hey, the power play is 0 for 10, like what's going on there, and he'll just kind of sit there and mutter under his breath, like he's like, yeah, I don't really know. I don't know how to answer that question. But in this instance, when I did ask him about the trade rumors, and as opposed to Palat being straightforward and, saying like, listen, Fitzgerald hasn't even talked to me, which is something he said straight up. I didn't have to prompt that out of him. Hamilton kind of, was looking for his words before he spoke. And then he said, listen, I'm just going to say what I said at the beginning of the year. It's as simple as that. I signed here for a reason. and this is where I want to be. And that took him a minute to figure out when I asked him the question. He wasn't sure where he was going to go at first. And he kind of, I don't want to say stumbled over his words, but he started to go in one direction, stopped, and then answered the question. So to me, it certainly read like he was trying to figure out how to say nothing without giving away too much. But I felt that it certainly answered everything I needed to know when I did ask the question, just because of, how all of these reports are starting to come out. And I think each of these reports is just another domino that is hitting the next one in how this all happened in the Quinn Hughes situation.
We're at time. I want to let you go and prepare for the game. I do want to know, is there a guy who we're not talking about that you think could be, we didn't talk about Minnesota being a target for Quinn Hughes. Is there a guy you think the Devils might target that we're not talking about?
If you need me for a few more, I'm in no rush, but you might have seen me bang this drum before, and I'm going to bang it again. And this isn't me saying that I know that they're doing this, but I think the person that they need to go after is Nazem Kadri. I think he's the guy who the Devils would certainly benefit from having. They don't have anyone. Look, I look at the Florida Panthers, and I see, I see a Sam Bennett who, look, he won a Conn Smythe for a reason. Is he their best player? No. Is he a skilled player who also holds his teammates accountable in the locker room, who will, speak up when it's necessary, both on the bench, on the ice, or in the locker room? Yes, he does all that stuff. Is he the guy who's agitating between whistles? Yes. Is he the guy who's going to throw a big hit? Yes. Is he the guy who's going to forecheck and do all of that? Yes. And Kadri is cut from the same cloth. He's a guy who's actually been there and done that as well. We saw what he did for Colorado, that run. I mean, he was arguably, if not, he wasn't the Conn Smythe winner, but he could have been. He was a very pivotal piece for that Colorado team. I think that he still
playoffs.
Yeah,
I was looking at it. Did you talk about this with Marek? You talked about this with somebody, right? On your
I
show?
talked about it with Wyshynski. Yeah, with Wyshynski. He brought it up, actually. He was the one, because I've been saying it, and then he said it to me, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad you said that, because I'm saying the same thing. I think Kadri's the kind of guy that they really need. I think, here's what I think. The Rangers tried to do this with JT Miller, and I don't know if it's necessarily working for them the way they thought it was going to work for them, but that's the kind of move I think the Devils need to make, and I think Kadri is that guy.
I think the Rangers have bigger issues than the
Certainly,
Devils, which is
certainly
crazy to say. But they look like they have breaks in the foundation, and that I don't think you could patch. All right, real quick then.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm laughing because Ryan's texting me. He's like, "Oh, Nichols is taking credit for me talking to Palat." Ryan spoke to Palat. I just know Palat's demeanor, and that's why I'm speaking to it.
You gave him the credit in the report. That's my fault. I apologize.
No, it's okay. I'm just answering the question. He's been funny lately. He's been crying about to me about a few things. It's so funny. I love him to death. He's doing a great job. But I keep telling him, like, hey man, you're crying a little bit. You gotta stop crying.
Listen, I think the Giants kind of beat him up a little bit. I think he came back. He needed to be put back together.
He's gonna roast me for this
a little bit. All right. So last question then, with Kadri or O'Reilly, whoever they get, and if you're Sheldon Keefe, are you putting him on the first line and letting him take faceoffs for Jack Hughes, or are you making him a typical third line center?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that's part of the reason why you get him, is that you have that flexibility to do both. If Jack's not doing well in the faceoff circle, and let's just say his hand doesn't allow him to take these faceoffs, then, he can be the guy to slide up to the first line and play and have Jack play on the wing. Because he's doing that in Calgary, or, the fact of the matter is too, Calgary's not the best team, obviously. And yes, last year he scores 35 goals for them. What do you think he's going to do on a Devils team who, look, are they playing well right now? No, but they have the parts to be a playoff contender. And a lot of us were talking about them being a Stanley Cup contender. I mean, they have these pieces that will certainly work. So I think that he's a guy who can do both first line, yeah, he can do that and play with Jack and play with Brat. Look, he's a shooter. He can score with both Brat and Jack feeding him. Or he could play third line. I mean, it just gives him so much flexibility. And it also, I think, this is an important thing to talk about as well, it will move Cody Glass down to the fourth line. Look, I think Cody Glass is playing great, but the fourth line, I've been a Luke Glendening fan, but I also don't know that he's playing his best hockey right now. And if you can have Luke Glendening as your 13th forward and have Cody Glass entering the fourth line with, say, it's Nason and Cotter, you're looking at a really deep team right there. So I think that one piece really puts all the forward cogs in the ignition, and you're cooking with that lineup when it's fully healthy for sure.
I think fully healthy, this is a really good team. But to your point, I think there's a part of this that we're kind of missing, and I go back to a weird story but I think it works here. There was a story from when LeBron James won the title with Cleveland that one season. They had a stretch where they looked terrible, and then they traded for Timothy Mozgov of all people. And LeBron James himself said, "When I saw them trade for Mozgov, I knew that ownership knew this was a championship team." And then the second, like, Timothy Mozgov wasn't a great player. Like, he was good, but like, it was just the fact that they made the big move for a position of need, and they went on a run and they won a championship in Cleveland. So I think it's almost like the mindset. Like, we've seen this Devils team kind of, I don't want to say quit, but like, there's times where they can't get back up for a period after giving up a goal, and I don't think that happens. I think that's an easy fix. Like, it just show a little confidence in your team and give them like the reinforcement. There's 8 guys injured, I think, tonight. Maybe 7 if Pesci comes back, but like, that's too many starters to be injured.
Yeah, I look at another team in relatively recent hockey history that, we could all point to and say, like, we thought that they were down and out and they came back and they won the whole thing. Look at the 2019-20 St. Louis Blues. I mean, that was a team where we thought they were out in January and they wound up, going on this crazy rally, and, they wound up winning the cup, and, they made the coaching change, and that's not something that's going to happen in New Jersey. This is not Sheldon Keefe's fault. But they had, they had some factors there that were, part of why they weren't winning at first. And then, they hit January and hit the ground running, right? And interestingly enough, one of those guys who I think helped a lot in the second half of that season was Braden Shen. That's another guy who I think, if it's not a Kadri or if it's not an O'Reilly, I think a Braden Shen is a guy who I know that the Devils have looked at, who can certainly help, third line center wise, and, God forbid another injury can move up in the lineup a little bit, not necessarily ideally move up, but, if they need him to, they can. So
better than a Glass situation.
For sure. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So Sam's going to kill me if I go any longer because he has to do the pregame show. But James, take a second, promote everything you got. I know you got the new video show that you're doing.
Oh.
You're competing with me. I'm like, I'm going to get Wyshkinski, and then he's on your show. He's like, I'm going to get the. You're beating me to the punch on a couple of these guys, but still, promote your show. Let everybody know what you're doing. You're doing a great job with everything you're doing this year.
No, I appreciate it so much. And I was supposed to have a big guest this Friday from within the organization. I don't know if that's happening now, just because of what I was told is, everything going on. Not sure what that means, but I'll let you guys know if I do have it going on. But you can find me at Devil's Rink Report on YouTube. I know a couple of fans have asked me if I'm going to put that out on RSS feed. That will be coming at some point, just not sure when yet. Maybe when we get to 1,000 on YouTube. So you can find me there, and you can find me at New Jersey Hockey Now via Sportsnot. That is a publisher's desk brainchild, and we are now we're operating on the Sportsnot platform. So you can find me there, and you can read today's report of the Dougie Hamilton dancing around the trade question.
And you have post game tonight, or is that coming in the morning?
I'm actually taking the night off. I have my contributor working the game tonight. Yeah, I saw an opportunity that my kids have been sick and they haven't been sleeping, so I haven't been sleeping, and I needed I need some sleep tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll catch you on the next game. James Nichols, New Jersey Hockey Now, Devil's Rink Report. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, James. James Nichols.
Do I say goodbye, or do you just cut me so you jump right into the pregame show?
Oh no, I have to. I have to transition over. It takes about 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. So
I know. I apologize, but we kind of knew this one was going to be late.
yeah, no.
But anyway,
I was sitting back. I didn't say anything.
I know.
I guess I make you nervous.
Your life easy.
Yeah.
Listen, James had so many good things to say. I really appreciate him kind of sharing. Like, he's been at the practices this year. He's been asking, and we got to give credit where credit's due. A lot of people are asking for these guys to ask hard questions, and James is asking. It's not easy to go up to a guy and be like, "Are you getting traded?" How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
These are hard questions to ask, and I've been in that room with James, and it's an awkward situation because I want to point one thing out real quick. I saw that video from Seattle where the Kraken only let the team reporter ask questions. And, I think every team thinks that's the ideal situation. So they kind of lead towards that. And Amanda does a great job, but, it's the team reporter. There's a certain direction that's going to go. And when I saw Seattle try that, I was happy to see that people fought back against it. You're not going to get any information. You're not going to get good reports. You're not going to get these guys' actual emotions, whether it's the coach or the players, if you don't get actual beat reporters like Ryan and Daniel and James. And I don't even consider myself in there. I'm in the room probably 5 to 10 times a year is kind of what I'm shooting for. I'm not a beat reporter. I'm just a kind of a guy. I've been running this website for a long time, but James and Christy. Sorry, I don't want to forget Christy. She's doing a great job as well. These people are at the ring every night, every day, asking those tough questions. It's important. It's important. I even if you get a nothing answer, like you kind of got from Palat, it's not a nothing answer, but it's like you said, a straightforward answer, like no. It's still important. It's important to know what these guys are thinking. So I appreciate James for coming on here. But yeah, that's about it, Sam.
You got anything to plug?
Yeah, pucksandpitchworks.com. Vinny Parisi's back. He wrote a story about how the Devils blew it. They could have drafted almost all of the guys that Bill Guerin drafted and traded to Minnesota, traded to Vancouver. The Devils had a chance. And I wrote an interesting one, Sam. Did you read the one about Lindy Ruff?
I saw it. I haven't read it yet.
I wrote about why I think Lindy Ruff could come back to the Devils.
Ooh.
And I'll I got a big article to write for fansided.com for the front page. So I'll be writing that during the Devils game. Post game, I'll probably, unless something crazy happens, I'll probably write in the morning. So keep an eye on pucksandpitchworks.com in the morning. There'll be some new articles for you.
Well, that's great. Well, we got Game Day Live coming to you live in about 10 minutes. So we're going to switch it over and go live at 9:15 p.m. Eastern. I want to thank all those tuning in. And also a big thank you to James Nichols as well for coming on to the podcast. Good friend of the podcast. And we'll see you in about 15 minutes for Game Day Live. Vinny Parisi and I will preview the game. Devils Knights. Till next time, let's go Devils.